his participation today as well. Give you just a second more. Always feels good to get up and move around after lunch, right? Grab a cup of coffee. They're pouring coffee as well. Back to the podium now. Dr. Dwight Wolf. He will speak to us about child and adolescent mental health and COVID. But up first, with a big introduction for him and a little bit more insight, is Dr. Jeff Temple, returning to the podium.
Thank you very much. I feel terrible for y'all that you haven't had to wait all day to see me on stage again. Thank you all for being here. Don't forget to check out the vendor booths. UTMB Health has a robust presence in there. Everything from aesthetics, women's health, my center for violence prevention is there. Urogynecology. So go check them out. I always said that if UTMB had a football team, I'd be that annoying fan at 50-yard line painted in UTMB colors and cheering us on. So anyway, thank you all again for being here. I'm going to introduce our next speaker. He is a professor. Also, you guys have a lot less energy because of the drinks, I think. And that's okay, because as soon as I get off, I'm going to be joining y'all. So he's a professor and vice chair of the Department of Psychiatry at UTMB. He is a pretty well-known musician here in these parts. All-around good dude. And what else should I say about you? Also a product of UTMB Health. So he also graduated from our amazing medical school. And so I would like, can we go to the next slide, please?
I do that?
No, not that one. Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay, cool. So remember, as we did this morning, so we're going to do 2 truths and a lie. And you guys are going to judge by a round of applause after I'm done reading them all which one is the lie. So 1, he co-parents a poodle with another panel discussant. So little did you know, he's been married to Mariel Hemingway for a while. It's not Mariel Hemingway. He played the piano for Barbara Bush. He rode a bicycle 100 miles in 5 hours. So, is it 1, the lie? Is the lie number 2? Is the lie number 3? All right, Dr. Wolf, which one is it?
The lie is number 2.
He played the violin for her.
No.
He didn't do that either.
No, not
true. All right, I'll see you all in about 30 minutes.
All right, thank you. Oh, I think I'm using this one. Well, thanks, everyone. I really appreciate being here. After the last year or two, I really appreciate being anywhere. I think this is the first talk I've given to a live audience in, I guess, 2 years. So it's really good to be here. And I got the late notice that we really didn't want to talk about COVID. So we'll keep that to a minimum in the talk. Nonetheless, it has been a stressful time for a lot of our children and adolescents. I spend about a day and a half a week in our clinics here, seeing patients and supervising our trainees, and learning how to be child and adolescent psychiatrists. So we've certainly seen an increase in the level of stress in our youth. We have seen increases in anxiety and depression. Unfortunately, we've seen a lot of children and adolescents that have a level of stress to the point where they want to give up. And you've probably read about the increase in suicidal ideation, suicides across the population, but worrisome that that's also extended to our youth as well. Even children that have been well adjusted prior to these stressors have had more difficulties. We've seen particularly kids that kind of rolled with the punches through the first year of this. When school started back this year, there was additional stress there. And the fortunate thing is that, as you might expect, children are resilient. And I tell my students and trainees that it's a wonderful thing to be a child psychiatrist because your patients get better and you have development on your side, and the little ones are oftentimes more resilient than we are. And so one of the messages that I try to put out there with all of my trainees and the folks that I work with is we need to foster that resilience. We've seen now the transition back to face-to-face education, so that's been frightening for some kids that have been worried through this whole thing. And then the whole mask issue that you're well aware of, and so how that will impact our kids is sort of a question. I don't know if we have more than one microphone on here or not. I'll move out of the way. So what do we want to watch for? So how do you know that there are problems? So children express their stress in many different ways. So you may see excessive crying. Irritability is common. And for teenagers, depression often manifests as increased irritability rather than sadness. So you may watch for that. You may see a return to previous behaviors that they've grown out of. So a young child may feel more clingy, or they may have more accidents. And older children may withdraw, and they may lose interest in other activities that they may have previously enjoyed. Changes in sleep or appetite, so difficulty getting to sleep or waking up in the middle of the night. And as you might know, some people eat more when they're stressed, and some people have stomach problems when they're stressed. So changes in appetite are common as well. Poor school performance. Children that did well before may struggle to focus and to pay attention, or they might not be as interested in that. They may not have the bandwidth for the schoolwork because they're focused on other things or more stressors. And things are common, so headaches, stomach aches. One of the concepts that I talk with my students about is midline symptoms. And what does that mean? Things that happen in the center. So headaches, trouble swallowing, stomach aches, chest aches. Kind of the midline of the body is where you see stress manifest. And then in our older adolescents, sometimes we're seeing increased experimentation with drugs or alcohol, particularly a problem now where cannabis is starting to become more and more available in, quote, legalized forms. So we're seeing an issue with that. So how do you support your kids during this? Well, it's really important to be there for them, to spend time talking, really listening to them. So putting away the phone, turning off the television, and really kind of in there and being available. Sometimes it's helpful to do activities together that you don't talk. You go for a walk. So just being there is helpful. And answering questions in a way that they can understand. And also being honest that if you don't know the answer, it's okay, right? We don't know the answers to everything that's going on. If we did, we wouldn't be here, right? So being honest, I'm not sure about that. But we're going to keep an eye on that, and we're going to continue to talk about it and think about it. That's a perfectly fine way to respond when you don't know, right? And being able to reassure the child as much as you can realistically that it's going to be okay. And it will be okay, right? We know that it will be okay. There may be bumps in the road, there may be hurdles, but it's going to be okay. And so that's an important concept. Limiting exposure to negatives. And so one of the things we're doing around my house is I have to turn off CNN and MSNBC. I just have to turn it off after. I get an hour. I've had a limit put on me. Somebody put a limit on my TV viewing. True. I'm not making that up. You already heard about it. Okay. With the poodle co-parent, she set a limit. Yeah, last week. I'm like in such a bad mood because of the news. It's a big argument. So it's like, okay, no more news. Turn it off. And so now I watch documentaries and comedies. So you have to limit that. But don't don't think kids don't hear the stuff that's going on, or that they're not interested, or that they hear things out of context, right? That's a huge concern, that they'll hear a piece of information in isolation without the context of everything else and think the worst, right? Very common. Keeping your routine as much as you can. So this was a problem during the pandemic when we were all at home, right? All of our routines were turned upside down, topsy-turvy. Now we're starting to get back into the rhythm, right? So keeping the bedtimes, keeping the wake times, you know, when do you eat dinner? When is homework time? So keeping that structure. Young children particularly need that structure and need that rules, and so do adolescents, but structure, rules, important, right? We have this sense that children and adolescents like to just run amok with no rules, right? They're happily not. They need that structure, they need the guidelines, they need the guardrails. So keeping the routines and, you know, keeping the structure is important. And then being a role model. What do I mean by that? You don't have to be Wonder Woman or Superman. You go about your daily routine, keep your routine, keep your structure. We've heard a lot, I think, about health and how to maintain your health and how to maintain your mental health and how to exercise and how to take care of yourself. So when your children see you doing that, that means this is important. And so being a role model by taking care of yourself, super important. And then spending time. And again, putting away the phones, putting away, you know, the distractions, and just spend time. Do something together. Very important. So what do you do if you're concerned about your child? If you're concerned that they're depressed, or you're concerned that they have an anxiety problem, it's reasonable to start with a visit to the pediatrician. And if they can't help or feel like they're out of their league and of their expertise, there's some things that we can do to help with that as well. We'll talk about that in a moment. And then there's the option of seeing a child and adolescent psychiatrist, someone like myself who specializes with working with young people. But the problem is that there's not enough of us. Child psychiatry is a nationally underserved specialty, so there aren't enough child psychiatrists in most communities to see the number of children that actually need our services. And so that's a real problem, and we've been working hard, and they've been working hard at the national level, the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, about how we can change that problem. And so far, there's been a lot of good ideas, but not much traction yet. And so we hope that over time that will improve. And I can tell you right now, the field of psychiatry has gone from a field that was really hard to get students interested in to being a very popular profession. That's psychiatry in general, you know, adult psychiatry. But the child psychiatry field still remains quite underserved. And so we had some interesting things that have happened over the last few years. And one of them was Hurricane Harvey, which hit Port Aransas and devastated the community. Our department had been involved for a long time in working with people over the video link. So telemedicine was something that has been done at UTMB for many years. In fact, I think I was a medical student they were doing. That's a long time ago, right? They were doing telemedicine back in the 80s. And I remember going over to the Ross building town and seeing the facility that they used for the telemedicine operation, and it looked like NASA. It looked like mission control. There were these huge banks of servers, big computer things, and I mean, it was just overwhelming. It looked like Star Trek. And now you can do it on your iPhone. And so it's come a long way. But we have a long history of working with people over this video link. In fact, they have a group that works with a research facility on the South Pole. And so they provide medical care to people on the South Pole. So that's very impressive. What we did after the hurricane was that we reached out and developed a relationship with the school district in Port Aransas and started seeing those children who needed child and adolescent psychiatry services. And that one thing led to another. And the legislature noticed that this was a helpful thing and provided some funding and expanded that program. We also have now another program where we have support for pediatricians. So I'm going to tell you about that. So the Child Psychiatry Access Network, this involves 13 academic institutions, including UTMB. And what this program is a consultation support service for pediatricians. So remember I said if you have a concern, a good place to start would be with the pediatrician. And so what we're doing, along with 12 other academic institutions, is we have agreements with pediatricians in the community that if they see a child who needs psychiatric services and they don't know the best way to manage that patient, they can call us, one of the 12 or one of the 13 groups, and speak to a child and adolescent psychiatrist within 30 minutes and discuss the case and discuss what might be going on and discuss the best way to manage treatment for that patient. So that's pretty exciting. We're really now working sort of elbow to elbow digitally with many of the pediatricians in the community. So I think that's been a wonderful thing, and we've got a lot of interest in our pediatricians. And the program is still in its early phases, but it's really taking off. And so it's really made a huge difference. And so all the pediatrician has to do is sign up for the program and then call the number, and then within a half an hour, they're talking to an expert in the field. So if your pediatrician is not part of this, remind them that they can sign up. It's available to any pediatrician in the state. Whoop, I didn't mean to laser anybody. And the other program we're doing is the Texas Child Health Access through Telemedicine. So this grew from the Porter Rancis agreement. And what this is an agreement with a number of schools in the area, and I'll show you sort of the area that we're covering, where a child, if they're concerned about a child, the school counselor can identify that as a particular need, discuss with the parent whether or not they want to have their child evaluated by a child psychiatrist, and that will be done over telemedicine from the school. And so the child can be seen, I'm thinking mostly in the school nurse's office, with a nurse by their side to help with the evaluation with the child psychiatrist over the video link. And so it's really been a kind of a remarkable thing to see take off, and it's free. Again, the state legislature has graciously provided funding for these services. It's very quick, so we get children in very quickly. So despite the fact that there's this great need and shortage, that particular program, they've opened up the resources to focus on those kids in those schools. And so kids can get in very quick. They can be seen in a setting that they're comfortable in, right? So they're at school, they go down, they sit with the school nurse, and then they talk with the child psychiatrist through the video link. So we're very excited about this program. And it's growing, and I will show you the map. And so you can see that we have a number of schools all the way from the Texas-Louisiana border down to Corpus Christi, and that's continuing to grow. So it's not in every school district. Thank you. So that's an overview of the kind of stress that we're seeing, what you might do, and the next steps that you might take, and then what's available. This information predominantly came from the CDC website. So the CDC has a very good website. They've certainly expanded that since COVID. And then the other resource that I would encourage you to look into is the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, or AACAP, ACAP. You can just look up acap.org. And there's a section called Facts for Families. And it's a very robust digital library that addresses almost any question you could think of in terms of child mental health, all the way from grief to managing stress, to death in the family, to how do you treat depression, written in lay terms. And so you can print that off, read about anything that you can feasibly think of. I can't think of an area that's not covered in those facts for families. And so hopefully that's helpful information and helpful resources for you. And I will be happy to answer questions. This is, you've seen him before today, I think. This is Wellington Wigglesworth, who I co-parent with Dr. Tammy Cupid. So happy to answer. Yes?
Are those services available for private schools also?
So the question is, are those services available for private schools? I believe that they would be. I will have to defer that question. Becky's nodding her head that we think that it is. Yeah. As I understand it, private schools, although they're private, they're still part of Galveston GISD, right? Yeah, so this will be GISD. Now, I'm not sure that we're directly involved with GISD because we have the teen health clinic. And so the teen health clinic may be available to those students as well. We have child psychiatrists and child psychiatry residents that actually go out to the school and see those kids. And so in Galveston, we have an in-person system that those children would be eligible for, and they can be seen at Ball High.
Well, it's a separate school from Ball High, but our children at Upward Hope Academy need you all.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So GISD, we provide those services. Our clinic is located at Ball High, but we see kids from all over the district and some from private schools. And so perhaps you can reach out to Becky and we can help coordinate that. Thanks for that question. Oh, I need to move on. Well, thanks everyone. I greatly enjoyed this. I need to...
A little gift for you is one of our few gents, and thank you for that presentation. It was great to see their fur baby again too as well, wasn't it? So you've had your lunch, maybe you've had a little coffee, maybe you've done a little shopping. Do you know what time it is? It's time to work it out again. Woo! Right, table number, what number are you? 8. Table number 8 is ready to work out. How about that? Well, I'm not trying to bow out on the workout, but it is time for me to bow out. The news continues. It's a nonstop. I'm going to duck out, and no, I'm not going to duck out.
Dance with me.
Oh, I'm going to dance with her. I was like, this part was on the program or the script. What's going on? I'm going to dance with her. That's right. She did tell me that. She's like, you're going to bound later this afternoon. But it's been a joy and a pleasure as always. As I've told so many people here today, this really has become a tradition for me. Galveston, always so warm and welcoming. I'm native Houstonian, so I've been coming to Galveston all my life. You don't have to tell me it's good. I know. And if you watch KHOU 11 News, you know, my favorite thing to do is to go to the beach. And David Paul is always talking about it year round. I'll be back in just a month for the tree lighting at the Galvez. I hope to see some of you ladies there. You've been a pleasure. Please enjoy the rest of the program. The best is yet to come. Thank you.